Hello everybody and welcome back to another online Chinese history class with me, Tony. Last class we talked about the Duke of Zhou making some bizarre rules in the Zhou dynasty, but still was an excellent person and considered the paragon or the perfect example of virtue. We also talked about the Duke of Zhou giving the throne willingly to the child emperor Ji Song when the time has come that Ji Song was deemed old enough to be able to rule over the entire Zhou dynasty. However, Ji Song only ruled for 21 years after that. I use the word only because normal kings within the dynasties rule for their entire lifetime or until they are too old and too senile and too weak and unfit to rule. 21 years is a long time from our perspective, especially as kids and teenagers. When compared to the Duke of Zhou's rule for only 7 years, it is a lot too. However, do not forget that the very reason why the Duke of Zhou was ruling, it was because Ji Song was too young. After he became of age and was fit to rule, Ji Song finally became the king. But what was his age when he became the king? What was the age that was deemed old enough to rule? Well, it was a mere 13 years old. That's right. It's as old as I am. Basic maths. 13 plus 21, the age equals to 34 when Ji Song stopped his reign. 34 years isn't old. We all know that. This leaves the possibility that Ji Song died. And yes, he did die of the age of 34 years old. It's a very young age to die. However, many kings and emperors died at a young age, but most of the kings who were famous lived on into their 50s and 60s. As the second king of Zhou, he would be pretty memorable, but he really wasn't. It was all the work of the Duke of Zhou that made Ji Song famous. It was the Duke of Zhou's story that tied Ji Song within the thing, and that it was interesting to see the rebellion of the three guards, which was put down by the Duke of Zhou and technically caused by Ji Song because of his young age. Anyways, now we shall be moving on to another king of Zhou. This one was very memorable because of what he himself did. The exact opposite of Ji Song. Ji Song really didn't do that much during his rule. However, you would not be calling him famous if you've heard of him before. Rather, you will be calling the king that we're about to talk about notorious or infamous. This basically means famous, but for bad deeds. A lot of foreshadowing into what we're going to talk about soon, eh? Well, this king actually has a story that is very much like a fable. Take a guess on which fable is related to the story of the king. I've chosen 3 fables randomly, and one of the 4 is not chosen randomly and actually related to the story. Now here I will give you a little hint at first. The title of this video is Backfiring of the Beacon Fire Ruse. So think about that and see if you can tie in some relations between the fables and the title. A. The lion and the mouse. B. The fox and the grapes. C. The tortoise and the hare. Or D. The boy who cried wolf. Okay, that should be enough time for you all to decide. If you don't have enough time, always be sure to pause the video. But anyways, the correct answer was, drumroll, D. All of you have heard of the fable Boy Who Cried Wolf, right? It was one of my childhood stories that I listened to for like about 50 times. It was very interesting. Anyways, if you don't know, which you should know, in the story, a boy pranks and tricks the villagers by shouting that a wolf arrived and was about to eat all of the sheep he's been herding and taking care of. The villagers all came to the rescue only to find nothing there. Irritated, they returned back home, but after only a day, the boy pulled the same trick again, and the villagers fell for the same trick, and repeated the same process, and even got more annoyed. After the third time of the boy doing this, they did not trust the boy at all anymore. And what then happened after this surprised everyone. A wolf actually came to eat the sheep, and the boy shouted and cried that there was a wolf again. But the villagers, since all trust was lost, did not listen, thinking that it was merely a prank. The boy died, along with all of the sheep, which all got eaten. This story is very similar to the story of the king we're about to talk about. Anyways, the time eventually came to the 12th king of Zhou, King You. King You was very similar to the last kings of the Xia and Shang dynasty, actually. He constantly joked around and drank and played and had parties, and that was the only things he basically did. Now, don't go mispronouncing the king's name as King Yu, okay? It's Chinese pinyin. It's supposed to be called Yo. And anyways, the good thing about him that made him different from the last kings of Xia and Zhou was that he did not have any weird torture methods, and he did not like to kill or torture people. Now, that was good, but it didn't make him a good king. In fact, he was a terrible king. So, one day, a beautiful woman named Bao Si was sent to him as a gift to unite some tribes and the Shang dynasty. King You was extremely happy, but it seemed like the woman was not. Bao Si never laughed or even smiled. This made King You very, very sad, so he offered awards including gold and political positions to people that made her laugh. Nobody was able to do that until a minister called Guo Shifu came up with the idea to light up the beacon fires around the city. A beacon fire is lit up to alert the royal princes and other armies that the city the king was in, usually the capital, was under attack. This way, the royal princes will rush to the king's rescue with a lot of the troops and take out the enemy with one fell swoop because of their majority in numbers. However, in this case, the beacon fire was to be lit even though there was no attack nor siege on the castle, and stupidly enough, just like the boy in the fable, they lit it. And as you can, before we continue on the story, as you can see on the screen here, there are two pictures of the beacon fire. Now, there are multiple beacon fires spread out through the city, each around, like in northeast corner, southeast corner, west to east, all around, right? And then when they light it, people can see it from very far away, and the scouts can see the beacon fires from very far away. Now, they're very large in magnitude, but they're also like the built up, kind of like on a tower, just like the right picture. It's sort of a combination of the left picture and the right picture. If you put the left picture's entire fire onto the right picture, on top of the white picture, and then expand the size by about 5-6 times, or even 10 times, then you will get basically how big that would look like, and it's very large indeed, which is why people from far away are able to see it. Anyways, after they lit the beacon fires around the city, the royal princes and their troops came to rescue of the king from nothing, or rather to save the king from his own stupidity. The confused looks of the royal princes and the realization of them when they realized this was all a prank, and their facial expressions had finally made Bao Si laugh. Achievement accomplished. King You was so happy. So, naturally, just like the boy in the fable, he repeated it again and again, just to make Balsa laugh a few more times, and have her smiling and laughing become natural. But after a few years, King Gil was attacked by traitors. He lit up the beacon fire, but no royal prince nor army came. He was killed, and Balsa was stolen by the enemy army. By the time the royal princes came to rescue, it was too late. The city was in ruins. One might even say that it was burnt. Ironic, huh? There's no historic record of it being burnt because they've arrived a couple days late. However, it might have just been burnt based on the condition that the city was in. That's going to be it for today. See you next time.